If you walk into almost any jewelry store in the Western world, you'll see it.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere.
It's on gold chains, it's on earrings, it hangs on millions of walls. I mean, it's arguably the most famous symbol in human history.
It is the cross.
But because it's so common, so ubiquitous, I think we tend to sanitize it.
We do. We forget that long before it was jewelry or a religious icon, it was a very specific piece of state-sponsored technology for execution.
Exactly. And that's where we're going today. We are stripping away the theology, the iconography.
Right.
Today, we're not looking at the spiritual significance. We're doing a forensic deep dive into the physiology. We want to know what exactly happened to the human body.
It's a pretty grim topic, but it is fascinating. We're sort of conducting a post-mortem on history's most famous death.
And to do that, we have a really incredible stack of sources. We're pulling from medical journals like JAMA and the PMC.
The Journal of the American Medical Association.
Right. We also have analyses from trauma surgeons, biologists, even historians of Roman law. And I should say, this particular stack was developed by Dr. Tammy Williams from Words by Tammy.
Which is great because it gives us this really cohesive look, the hard medical data and the historical context all in one place.
So the mission is biological, to reconstruct, step by step, the physical trauma the body endures under this specific Roman system.
And interestingly, the sources all say you can't just start at the cross.
No, you have to start the night before.
In the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, most people know the story. Jesus is distressed, praying, he knows what's coming. But there's a detail in the account that says his sweat became like drops of blood.
Which, for centuries, I think people just assumed was, poetry. A metaphor for extreme anxiety.
Exactly. But modern medicine, and especially the trauma surgeons looking at this, they identify it as a documented physiological condition. It's called hematidrosis.
Hematidrosis. Okay, so what is actually happening in the body to make someone sweat blood?
Well, it's very rare, but it happens under extreme life or death stress. The fight or flight response goes into overdrive.
Okay.
So the capillaries, the tiny blood vessels around your sweat glands, they rupture under the intense pressure of the stress hormones.
I mean, literally burst.
They burst. The blood then mixes with the sweat in the gland, and that mixture gets pushed out onto the skin.
So it's not a metaphor at all. That's terrifying.
It is. But here's the key physiological point for what comes next. When this happens, the skin becomes incredibly fragile, very tender.
Because it's been traumatized from the inside out.
Precisely. You're basically pre-sensitizing the entire surface of the body to pain. So before a single blow is struck, his physical defenses are already compromised.
Which just makes everything that follows exponentially worse.
Oh.
Now, before we get to the arrest, we should probably touch on a why. To the Romans, this wasn't really about theology, was it?
No, not at all. For Pontius Pilate, this was a security problem. The charge against Jesus wasn't blasphemy. It was sedition, king of the Jews.
You have to remember the context. It's Passover in Jerusalem. The city's a powder keg.
It's packed with pilgrims, religious fervor is at its peak, so when Jesus causes a disturbance at the temple earlier in the week, Pilate sees a potential rebellion, a threat to the Roman peace.
So, in the eyes of Rome, he's a potential insurrectionist, and they don't get a quiet death.
They get a public deterrent. That's the key. Crucifixion wasn't just about killing you, it was about destroying you slowly, publicly, shamefully, so no one else would ever dare try what you did.
Okay, so the arrest happens, and the physical dismantling of the body begins with the scourging. Now, I think we have this sanitized idea of a whipping.
Right, like a single leather strap. But the Roman flagrum was a completely different beast.
What was it?
It was an instrument engineered for maximum tissue damage. The sources describe it as leather thongs, but they were weighted, usually with lead balls and sharp fragments of sheep bone.
So it's a dual-action weapon.
It is. The lead balls cause these deep contusions, bruising the muscle all the way down to the bone. But the bone shards, that's where the real damage is. They catch in the skin. When the soldier pulls back, it doesn't just cut.
It tears.
It rips. You're tearing through skin, fat, and eventually shredding the skeletal muscle itself. Some sources say it would expose the ribs.
And this isn't just about pain. This creates a specific medical crisis. The sources keep mentioning hypovolemic shock.
Right. Let's break that down. Hypo, low, volume, emic, blood, low blood volume.
The tank is running empty.
Essentially, yeah. The blood loss from a scourging like this is so massive that the heart doesn't have enough fluid left to pump to the vital organs.
And the body just goes into emergency mode.
It does. Your heart rate spikes, you get cold, clammy skin, an intense, maddening thirst. You'd likely be fainting. By the time the scourging is over, the victim is in a critical medical state.
Which explains a detail in the story that I've always wondered about. Why he couldn't carry the cross.
Exactly. And, it was just the crossbar he had to carry, the patibulum.
Right. Which weighed about, 100 pounds?
Somewhere between 75 and 110 pounds, yeah. A healthy man could do that. But someone in advanced hypovolemic shock with their back muscles shredded.
It's biomechanically impossible.
It is. The muscles can't fire. That's why they had to grab Simon of Cyrene. It wasn't mercy, it was logistics. They needed to get him to the execution site before he died on the way.
There's one other piece of trauma here before the cross itself. The crown of thorns. Again, we see it in art as this sort of delicate, mocking wreath. But the trauma surgeons in our stack say it was life-threatening on its own.
It was. You have to think about the vascularity of the scalp. If you get a small cut on your head, it bleeds a shocking amount.
Oh yeah. Head wounds bleed like crazy.
Now imagine forcing thorns, and the thorns in that region can be 1 to 2 inches long, deep into that tissue. The blood loss would be massive, contributing hugely to that state of shock.
Plus, the sources mention the trigeminal nerve.
Yes, that's the main nerve system for your face. Compressing that nerve sends these searing electric shocks of pain across the entire face and jaw.
So, before a single nail is hammered, the person is in critical condition. Shock, massive blood loss, muscle failure, nerve damage.
And now, they arrive at Golgotha, the place of the skull.
And this is where we have to correct probably the most common image of the crucifixion. The nails in the hands.
In the palms, you mean?
Right. Every painting, every movie shows them through the palms.
Which is anatomically impossible. The body wouldn't stay on the cross.
Why not?
Simple physics. The tissue in your palm is soft. The weight of a human body hanging on a spike driven through there, it would just rip right through the skin between your fingers. The body would fall.
So the Romans knew that. Where did the nails actually go?
The sources are pretty clear. Through the wrist. In the space between the radius and the ulna, that bony structure can support the weight, but the cost is catastrophic.
Because of what else is in that space?
The median nerve.
Describe what hitting that nerve with a 7-inch iron spike would feel like.
Well, the sources compare it to hitting your funny bone, that electric jolt.
Yeah, but that's just a tap.
Exactly. Now imagine that sensation, but magnified 1,000 times over from a jagged spike crushing that nerve. And it's not momentary, it's constant. Every time the body moves, that nerve grinds against the metal.
A fiery, shock-like pain shooting up the arms.
Relentless. And that's just the arms. Then you have the feet.
Right. They nailed through the midfoot. But I noticed in the medical diagrams, the knees are bent.
That bent knee position is absolutely crucial. It's not an accident. It is the specific design that causes death.
This brings us to the actual cause of death. I think most people assume it's blood loss, or maybe just pain-induced cardiac arrest.
But the medical consensus in our sources is something else entirely.
Which is?
Asphyxiation. You suffocate to death.
Walk us through the mechanics of that. How does hanging stop you from breathing?
It's all about gravity. When you're suspended by your arms like that, the weight of your body pulls your rib cage up and out.
Okay.
It puts your chest in a permanent state of inhalation. So breathing in is easy, it's passive. The problem is breathing out.
You can't exhale.
Not without a fight. To exhale, you have to actively compress your rib cage. To do that, you have to lift your entire body weight.
Using your legs. So, to take a single breath out, you have to push down on the nail in your feet.
Correct. You have to push down on the spike through your feet, which sends that searing pain up your legs, just to lift your body enough to let the air out of your lungs.
The trauma surgeons call it a cycle of pain.
That's the term. You hang down, and the pain in your wrists is blinding from the weight on the median nerve, but you can't breathe. So you panic, you push up to get a breath, but now your full weight is on the nail in your feet, and your shredded back is scraping against the wood.
Toggling between suffocation and searing pain.
For hours, up and down, just trying to stay alive.
Until eventually your body just gives out.
The muscle fatigue becomes total. You reach a point of exhaustion where you physically cannot lift yourself anymore.
And what's happening chemically inside the blood at that point?
It's a condition called respiratory acidosis. You're not exhaling, so carbon dioxide builds up in your blood, turning it acidic.
And the heart, which is already in shock from the scourging, How does it react to acidic blood?
It starts to fail. It beats faster and faster, trying to compensate. Fluid begins to leak out of the vessels and collect around the
Our
organs.
sources use the terms pleural effusion and pericardial effusion.
Right. Pleural effusion is fluid around the lungs, making breathing even harder. Pericardial effusion is fluid building up in the sac around the heart, compressing it.
It sounds like a complete metabolic collapse.
It is. It's multi-system failure. Eventually, the heart just gives out, either a massive heart attack or, as some sources suggest, a cardiac rupture. The heart muscle literally bursts.
That detail,
Mm.
it actually explains one of the final moments in the narrative, doesn't it? The spear.
It does. A soldier thrusts a spear into his side to confirm the death, and the text says blood and water flowed out.
For centuries, people read that as purely symbolic.
And maybe it is symbolically, but forensically, it's a perfect description. The water is that clear, serious fluid from the pericardial effusion, followed by the actual blood from the ruptured heart chamber.
It's a grim confirmation of heart failure.
It is, and this whole medical reality, it pretty much dismantles a historical theory you see in the sources, the swoon theory.
Right, the idea that Jesus didn't actually die. He just fainted from the pain and was revived by the cool air of the tomb.
Based on everything we've just laid out, the hypovolemic shock, the asphyxiation, the heart failure, is survival even remotely possible?
I mean, medically, it's a 0% chance.
Right. But there's an even better rebuttal in the notes from a skeptic named David Strauss.
What was his argument?
His point was psychological. He said, let's just imagine the impossible. Let's say Jesus did survive. He'd be a broken, half-dead man, limping, needing weeks of medical care.
He wouldn't look like a conqueror of death.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Strauss's point was that a figure like that, crawling out of a tomb, wouldn't have inspired a global movement based on victory. His followers would have felt pity, not worship. They would have called a doctor, not started a religion.
That's a powerful point. The totality of the physical trauma makes the swoon idea historically nonsensical.
It does, and yet people have always struggled to process this event. That's why we have these fascinating texts in our stack called the Pilate Cycle.
Apocryphal texts, right, centuries later.
Yeah, they're basically historical fan fiction. In some, Pilate is so racked with guilt that he converts. In others, the Emperor Tiberius hunts Pilate down to punish him for killing someone who could have healed him.
They're trying to find some justice in this story.
They want the system to answer for what it did, but the forensic reality is the system worked exactly as it was designed to. It was a cold, calculated, efficient dismantling of a human being.
A perfect storm of pain.
It was a collision of psychological trauma, systemic trauma, mechanical trauma, and finally, metabolic collapse.
You know, it really changes how you hear a word we use every single day. The word excruciating.
We use it for anything. A bad meeting, a long wait in line.
But the word itself, it comes from Latin. Ex crucis.
Out of the cross.
Think about that. The pain was so specific, so total, so beyond the normal scope of suffering that they had to invent a new word just to describe it.
Wow. Our standard for the worst possible pain is literally defined by this one event.
It really puts it in perspective. Whether you view this as a divine act or just a brutal execution, the anatomy of it is staggering. It wasn't just a death, it was an ordeal that's hard to even comprehend.
Absolutely. And I think understanding the physiology keeps it from becoming just another polished symbol. It keeps it real.
Well, I think that's a powerful place to leave it. We've gone from the capillaries in the garden to the heart failure on the cross.
It's been a heavy deep dive, but a necessary one.
And to you, listening, thanks for being here. Next time you see that symbol, maybe you'll see a little deeper. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you.